Hello and welcome to Mad About Superheroes cartoon commentary of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. The episode that we're about to watch is called A Firestar is Born. Pretty self-explanatory with the title. It's going to be about the origin of Firestar. Not originally a Marvel Comics character specifically created for this cartoon series, Firestar, but then shortly after incorporated into the Marvel Comics universe, and I think we're all the better for it. I think she's a great character. Big fan of Firestar, especially her inclusion in the New Warriors. I mentioned in my previous cartoon commentary of the episode The Origin of the Spider-Friends, which is a great episode. This is another one that I would always hope to catch in a rerun. And as I said previously, great opening sequence. Excuse me. Love all the guest stars in this series and the villains that would show up. The guest stars in this episode specifically excited about because it's the X-Men. I'm not the only fan of the X-Men. It was around this time it was Marvel Comics' top-selling book, and deservedly so. Also wanted to mention, besides Stan Lee being the co-creator of Spider-Man, the artist that was also equally responsible for Spider-Man's success and his popularity was Steve Ditko. And a lot of other artists followed after Steve Ditko left, like John Romita. But Steve Ditko doesn't get enough credit when Spider-Man is mentioned, so I wanted to bring that up. Now we got the awesome transformations here that they do in every episode of Iceman and Firestar. And they're on the move. They got an X-Men reunion to get to. This episode kind of goes off in two different directions where you get Spider-Man has a little bit of a solo adventure before he reunites with his co-stars, Firestar and Iceman. And we got a little bank robbery going on here, and love how Spidey captures them in his little spider web net. I would always like in the comic books when he would make different things out of his webs. Like he'd even do like a parachute. I love when he'd do the parachute, like if he was up too high and there was nothing to catch his web to. And they kind of attached Firestar to Iceman's origin, kind of, where the simplest thing to do is just say she's a mutant, and so you don't have to come up with how she got her powers, which was Stan Lee's original idea, is that it got too tough to come up with ideas for, how they got their powers. So he was just like, well, they're just born with them. They're just born that way. So that's the easiest thing to do for Firestar. So they did that in the series, and they made her an X-Man. And now we got one of the X-Men's main villains showing up here, the Juggernaut, Kane Marco, and he's encountered Spider-Man here, and so this is one of the other directions I was talking about, where Spider-Man's kind of has a little solo adventure where he battles the Juggernaut, and he has a tough time with him, and then later on in the episode, he's going to meet up with Iceman and Firestar and the X-Men. The Juggernaut is the stepbrother of Charles Xavier. Always love in the comics when Juggernaut would show up. It's a great character. He appeared in the X-Men films, the original X-Men films, the third installment that was called Last Stand. And I think the actor's name that played him was Vinnie Jones. Had a history prior to that of starring in Guy Ritchie movies. Now they're going into the Juggernaut's origin, how he found this crystal, this gem, and his powers are magic based. A lot of people think or confuse that the Juggernaut is a mutant, but he's not a mutant. His powers come from this magic stone. And this getup that he wears, especially that helmet, he actually wears it for a reason, which is going to come into play a little later on. But love this here where Spider-Man's using his spider strength, and he tips the cement truck to dip onto the Juggernaut. He kind of has to use his wits to battle the Juggernaut, because the Juggernaut, of course, is much stronger. It's definitely a David and Goliath situation going on here, and that didn't work out. You know, as Juggernaut famously likes to say, nothing can stop the Juggernaut. As he's saying right here, you can't stop me. The animation in this episode seems to be a step up from other episodes. It looks a lot nicer. And Juggernaut sounded a little bit like the Hulk right there. It just that roar sounds like, always reminds me of the Hulk when a character does that. And their rage steps out. Again, love the transitions with the spider webs. I like how they would do that in every episode. Now we have the introduction here of two of the X-Men. We got the Angel and Storm. It's Warren Worthington III is the Angel, and Aurora Monroe is Storm. And she's gonna meet up with Angelica Jones Firestar and Bobby Drake Iceman. This is kind of a strange team that they've assembled for this episode. Mostly because it wasn't representative of the X-Men in the comics at the time. I mean, Storm was, but Angel wasn't really. Well, he was in the early '80s. That's right, he was in it. But I'm surprised they didn't use other members like Nightcrawler and Colossus or Kitty. Although there is another episode that stars the X-Men. Now we got Wolverine showing up here. Lots of people's favorite, Wolverine, and for some reason they gave him an Australian accent. But there is another episode that guest stars the X-Men that uses some of the aforementioned characters, Colossus and Nightcrawler. But for some reason, Wolverine's not in that episode. But the episode's called The X-Men Adventure. It's good, but I really wish that they had included Wolverine in that episode. It would have been it would have been more representative of the giant-size X-Men team that came out in 1975. But now we're going into Firestar's origin here. She's regaling the new X-Men, Storm and Wolverine, with tales of her youth and how she was kind of bullied, and how her mother wasn't really in the picture. She was raised by her dad, and he's telling her that to always be a good person. And that sticks with her, even through all her bullying. That sticks in her head. And a lot of the stuff that goes on here, it's not really coming into play now, just that she's getting bullied, but it's in a few minutes or a few seconds it's going to happen, where it's a lot like the movie Carrie. It doesn't take such a horrible turn as Carrie. This is like the G version, but that's what this reminds me of. And even like Carrie, and there are other movies that happened much later that I think were influenced by it, or the superhero origin, influenced by the superhero origin, except they take a bad turn. Those are interesting. Like there's movies like Chronicle and like Brightburn, but I like the more positive outcome, that you have these bad things happen to you, but when you get superpowers, you don't turn into the incredible asshole, and it takes a more positive turn. And you become a good person. You become a superhero rather than a villain. You don't want to become the thing that you hate. So I like that version of the story. Even though, like I said, it is interesting to explore the other side of it, like those movies like Chronicle and Brightburn. But I'm more of a fan of the more positive turn, which of course this episode is displaying. She can't just get away from this one group of, one girl in particular that's like really bullies her, and then she's got like these followers, a few girls that just go along with everything she does.
Hey, look at Angelica's fire. Can we sit with you,
Angelica? But I mentioned Firestar's inclusion in the New Warriors, which was a '90s comic book, which I actually did a comic book review of. You can check it out if you visit my homepage. But they also made her an Avenger later on. Her and another character that she had a romantic relationship with called Justice. That both of them became Avengers, which was cool. They auditioned, and at first, Captain America and some other core members of the Avengers deemed them a little bit too young, and they should maybe try out in a few more years when they've had a little bit more experience. But Hawkeye was the one that took him under his wing, and basically, if I'm remembering right, he gives up his spot on the team for the two of them, which is very cool. But Fire started out on this cartoon series, and she became like a full, fledged member of like the Avengers, and then like I said, she was in the New Warriors, so she's got a long history in the Marvel universe. Sort of like what happened like with Harley Quinn. She was created for the Batman the Animated Series, and then she just became a really popular character. And I think she was only supposed to be like in one episode or two episodes. But I had a really good fan response. The writers of the show, whatever, liked her, and she got into the DC Comics universe, and now she's like one of the most popular characters out there for DC. Was in the live action version. She's been in the movie, played by Margot Robbie. But a lot like Firestorm. Excuse me, Firestar. Now we got, she's a little more grown up here, and this is going into when she's actually going to take on the persona of Firestar, where she gets the idea for it. Where it's her father that's in danger, and she doesn't want her father to know. So she wants to, like most superheroes, they want to have that secret identity thing going. So she puts on a disguise. And there, plants the seed for having the superhero identity, which is cool. They're cliches or tropes of comic books, but they're good ones. You got to respect the history as a tradition. The mighty Marvel tradition, right? As Stan Lee famously always said. And that's cool how they show how like heavy he is, how she has to like really brace herself and pull up. Like how she just fly. It's very much like reminds me of Christopher Reeve's Superman, the original movie, where he flies off Lois Lane's rooftop. And then he comes around to the front door, like within seconds. They just did that too, where she flies off and then she runs around. I like that. So speaking of characters that were created in cartoon series and then, ventured off and became members of the comic books, X-23 was another one. She was created for the X-Men Evolution cartoon series, and much like Firestar, was incorporated into the Marvel Comics universe, and again became a very popular character. So not everything has to originate in the comic books. You can create like the films. Sometimes they come up with new ideas, and then it also gets incorporated into the comic books. Just as much as the films are influenced by the books, sometimes it can go the other way too. I remember a time when the X-Men films first came out, the comic books followed suit, and the X-Men started wearing black uniforms, which I never really liked. I didn't even like when they did it in the movies, but I was happy to have an X-Men movie that was good. But I wanted the comics versions, or even the film versions, to be representative of their look in the comic books. And I wasn't really a big fan of when the X-Men started wearing black leather outfits in the comic books. I wanted, Wolverine to have his classic yellow and blue outfit, or even the brown and yellow one that he used to wear. I always have said that, movies are movies and comics are comics. They're two different things, So I don't think that the comic books should try to be like the movies.
But I never left the room, except with Data.
So now the bullies have, they're a bit older here. It's like high school age. And they framed Angelica Jones, of course, for a crime she didn't commit. So she's getting suspended and not good. And this is where it's going to come into play again, too, where we're going to finally get to see her transition into the Firestar costume.
Look, it's even in the school newspaper. Miss Angelica.
It's a bum rap. She's in the she's in the school paper. If she was a little older, it would have been in the Daily Bugle, right? It would have been slander. No, and print it's libel, right? Like J. Jonah Jameson says in the first Spider-Man movie. Slander spoken.
It's time for the next step of my plan to ruin Angelica.
Great performance by J.K. Simmons in those movies. Love his J. Jonah Jameson.
I was able to follow them without being seen.
So now she's pretty much gone full-blown, superhero. She's going to prove her innocence.
During halftime of the big game, you'll sneak the gold cup into
So yeah, they framed her for stealing this gold cup. And again, this is very much like like the movie Carrie, the Stephen King-based movie, directed by Brian De Palma, I believe. Where it's like a public humiliation thing that they did at the end of the film. Although in this, it's going to play out differently. It's going to have a more positive turn. And the public humiliation won't be on like in the movie, it's on Carrie, but in this, it's going to be the reverse thing where it's on the bullies.
I am Firestar.
Just shows up. He just shows up and she's like, I am Firestar. I think people would be like freaked out. They'd be scared. This chick is on fire and she's flying in the air. Like, what the hell? Although maybe, superheroes are like a regular happening, a regular thing in this universe. So it's like no big deal. And she's coercing her into a confession, which doesn't really work. But they're going to call that out too, where I think it's like the dean or the principal. Yeah, says you can't threaten somebody into confessing. So it's kind of cool that they did that. So she needs proof, and she's gonna, of course, get the proof. The boyfriend has the cup, the gold cup that Angelica Jones was accused of stealing.
It was all her idea.
And just like most villains are cowards, they turn on each other as soon as they start blaming each other. And another case of her flying off and then flying off, and not even 2 seconds later, she appears as Angelica Jones. And she's been vindicated.
I had proven myself, but what would happen to Firestar now?
And excuse me, jeez.
Don't go any further.
And now we got the first meeting of Bobby Drake Iceman and Firestar together for the first time. And it seems like a little fight's about to break out, which is alleviated by the appearance of the Angel.
Take it easy. We're the good guys. Follow me.
That's cool. But it seems like they're trying to, like, in this universe or this version of the characters where they take out Marvel Girl, Jean Grey, and the Beast. And it seems like they're trying to imply like these were the original X-Men. The Angel, Cyclops, who's just shown up also, Iceman, and Firestar. Just for the sake of the series. I guess they didn't want to, it's a little difficult to have too many characters floating around, so this is what they went with. Which is pretty cool. As a kid, I didn't care. I was just, happy to see the X-Men in a cartoon series. I think they were trying to, as early on as this series, which is like 82, 83, they were trying to get an X-Men cartoon made from the early 80s. Of course, nothing really came to fruition until the early 90s, but besides the 2 guest appearances on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, there was also a pilot that I'm sure, everybody pretty much knows about. It's kind of common knowledge, called Pride of the X-Men, that never was picked up to series. But anyways, now they've just shown Firestar in the Danger Room, which is cool, and some fights that they had in the past with Magneto and the Sentinels. Very cool, even though quick, cameos. Very cool to see. Now we got finally the Juggernaut's busting, and we got the X-Men up against one of their arch nemesis, and Wolverine's Australian accent popping out again alongside his claws. It's funny how they it's almost like a foreshadow or a prediction how they'd have an Australian actor that would actually play Wolverine, although in the comic books he's not Australian, he's Canadian, so that's kind of silly. Now we got this cool battle going on here, and that how they formulate this, or Xavier formulates a plan about how they're gonna use their powers and teamwork and defeat the Juggernaut. Very cool stuff to see these characters, for the first time. Like, it's basically the first animated the first animated version of Wolverine and Storm, but Xavier, Cyclops, and Iceman there was a 60s cartoon that was very limited animation that they appeared in back in the 60s. So this is the first animated appearance of Wolverine and Storm, though, which is cool. So we got Cyclops kind of digging a trench here. Iceman did this big ice shield or wall to kind of hold the Juggernaut back, and Iceman's dug this ditch for him to fall into. It's cool how they use their powers and teamwork against him. And again, Xavier's the man with the plan, and how I mentioned earlier about how Juggernaut wears this helmet, and it's actually to protect him from his stepbrother Xavier, who they have a history with, and they've battled each other before, is the implication. And he wears this helmet to protect himself from Xavier's psychic attacks, because he's got like psychic powers, telekinesis, he can read minds, all that stuff. So that helmet is to protect him from Xavier's attacks. Kind of like Magneto has a similar thing. He wears that helmet to protect him from Magneto's, reading his mind and his mental attacks. So that's a nice shot of Firestar using her fire against Juggernaut. That's cool too. How Juggernaut was coming after him, and Spider-Man uses his little web net to pull Xavier up. And Xavier, one of the first, physically challenged superheroes. Going back to the '60s when X-Men was first created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. So that's very cool. That's a cool thing. The first paraplegic superhero, and then, of course, Daredevil, most famously the first blind superhero. And here we go. Spider-Man's pulled that helmet off of the Juggernaut. And Xavier's going to step in and do his thing, or not really step in. That's a faux pas. Sorry about that. Angel's flown in with him, and he's going to use he's going to mentally attack him. A psychic blast, and of course he's got to narrate what he's doing to him, just in case anybody doesn't get it. Because for a lot of people, this could be or could have been their introduction to these characters. I was, reading comics, so I knew about them. And would have been happy if they had Nightcrawler in there, but, I was still happy that we got a version of the X-Men guest starring in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And that episode comes a little later. I think it's later, or I'm not sure if it was before, where they had the X-Men adventure. But very cool episode. Always happy to rewatch it. Glad you guys can tune in with me. And as always, thanks for letting your geek flag fly with Mad About Superheroes. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share the video with your friends, please. And we'll see you on the next one.